Hello and welcome back to Tinker Talks Guns. Today we're going to be talking about the Sig 938, P938 technically. This is a micro 9mm 6-shot that kind of looks like a little tiny 1911, and it kind of works like a little tiny 1911, although this, like most guns of its ilk, are based rather on the Star 9mm from Spain in terms of their particular details and operation. But before we get into that, I'd like to thank my supporters on Patreon. This is very much a shoestring operation, and your contributions help more than you know. I'd also like to thank channel benefactors who have provided the channel with guns to show, guns to own, ammunition, use of their facilities, and any number of other ways that have really helped make the channel work. I'd also like to thank Rain City Shooting Center for providing material support for the channel. So, the 938. Now, it's no secret, I like 1911s. And if I like them as much because I'm a hot rodder and have 40 years of experience with them, that's as may be. So a Micro 9 that, with the same manual of arms as a 1911, seems like a natural. I certainly thought so. And my wife has the 238, which is the 380 version of this gun, and I absolutely love it. It's a wonderful little gun. So, the Sig 938, P938, it has an ambidextrous safety, good sights with a nice ledge for emergency cocking against belts or other objects, and a very 1911 magazine release. The magazine holds 6 rounds, so you have a 6+1 capacity, which is a little short, but not bad, given that others in its class have 10+1 magazines. It's not bad. The grips have a nice texture on them, and there is what looks to be 30 line per inch checkering, front and back. Could be 20.05 line per inch, I don't know. And it provides a really good, firm grip on the gun. So I was very eager to try this out. Let's have a look at the range footage and see how that went.
Sure, yeah. All right.
It went, in a word, well. The gun is easy to shoot accurately and easy to rapid fire with surprising accuracy because of the low reciprocating mass of the slide. And while I can only get 2 fingers on the grip, it is sufficient mostly. So that's the good news. Oh, and of course it functioned flawlessly with both defensive and low-powered range ammo and a couple things in between. So, winner? Yes, but not for me. I do think this edge is a little sharper than it needs to be, but that's my only real quibble with the gun, except in recoil, when I pull the trigger all the way back, no matter what I do, no matter how I alter my grip, in recoil, the bottom of the trigger guard slams into my trigger finger with enough force that after even 3 magazines, it's starting to be noticeable and a little annoying. I think if I put a full box of ammo through this, I would have a bruise that would persist for days, and this is a problem for me. Why is it a problem for me? Because I like to practice with my carry guns. And a gun that I can't practice with is not a good carry gun for me. Now, I know a lot of other people who use these and love them and do not experience this problem. It is unique to my hand, and hands very close to mine. So don't take that as a knock on the gun. It just doesn't work for me, which really kind of breaks my heart. Let's have a closer look at the details on the tabletop. Okay, so this is a very petite gun. It is 6 inches long and 4 inches high. It is under an inch thick through the slide and only a hair over an inch through the grips. So it's quite compact. The grip is very short, which makes it very easy to conceal, because the butt is one of the harder things to conceal, and an obtrusive or long butt is difficult under light cover garments. They are some sort of wood with very nice stippling just where you need it. And with either hand, it's right there, and it anchors the gun very nicely in the hand. The checkering also helps a great deal. The trigger guard is undercut. For my purposes, I'd like it a little more undercut, but that's quibbling. The controls operate exactly like a 1911, except you can apply the safety when the hammer is down, unlike your typical 1911. Now, when you do this, you cannot charge the gun. So it would have been kind of a nice safety feature to be able to charge the gun with the safety applied, because then, you don't have to worry. You worry just a little less about accidents. But it is secure, it is easy to operate, and there's enough of a ledge through here that you can ride the safety in proper 1911 fashion. The sights are 3-dot sights, which, while not my preference, is fine. And again, you can see there is this ledge right here, very handy for working against the edge of a table or a belt or whatever, should you need to rack the gun in emergency. And overall, it's very nicely finished, as you would expect of a Sig. And the 6-round magazine ejects very readily. And all in all, it's pretty much all there, just as you would want for such a gun. Now, the trigger is a bit of another matter. It's not bad, but it's not as good as I would hope for in a gun of this type. It is, first of all, according to the handy-dandy Lyman trigger gauge, it is 6 pounds. And that's pretty stiff for a 1911 style of gun. Now, of course, it is a hinge trigger rather than a sliding trigger, but I don't think that honestly has anything to do with the weight of the trigger pull. Also, it really isn't as crisp as I would expect on a gun of this type, especially one from Sig. You get to the wall, and there's just a little bit of squish as it takes up. Now, it breaks cleanly after that, and the reset is not overly long, but it's not 1911 short either. So the trigger is good. It's just not as good as I would want on a gun of this type, something with a 1911 manual of arms. This did not really affect the quality of shooting it, but I'd hoped for better. And that's a problem with my expectations, not the gun, because as mentioned, the gun works just fine. Takedown is identical to a 1911. Pull the slide back, pop out this, and it all just comes apart, except that unlike a 1911, the barrel comes out the back after you remove the recoil system. Other than that, it's very 1911-like, but it is not a 1911. Now, a reasonable standard for comparison with a more, call it modern design, is the Sig P210, another Sig. Now, the Sig P210 has a 10-round magazine. The grip is only barely thicker on this Wilson Combat module, and I'm not sure it's noticeably thicker. I think the stock grip is thicker, but by maybe a couple millimeters. I don't know. It is more ergonomic in the hand. And while this is not by any means a 1911 trigger, it is very good for a striker-fired gun. After this gun has had some work on it. And the reset is absolutely the same length as on this design, which for a hammer-fired single action is not what you would expect. It is a ½ inch taller, but basically the same length. So, yeah, it is right at 6 inches. So there's your standard for comparison. By the way, the rear sights are very similar, if not identical. I think they're the same sight. At least they're so close that there's not much to choose between them, and they both use the Sig sight groove, so I expect they're actually interchangeable. So that's the details on the 938. So, two problems with this gun. The interface of it in my hand is not good, and that's not a gun problem. We've already established that. The second problem is my expectations. I expected it to be better, and honestly, that wasn't realistic, because my direct standard for comparison, I've realized, is my wife's Sig P210 Legion. The Legion is a very upscale model. This is not an upscale model. The Legion has a better trigger. The grip is a little smaller, and 380 has less recoil, so it doesn't hammer the trigger guard into my hand. This is a very good gun, and it works very well and is very reliable. It's just not the right gun for me. And that breaks my heart a little bit, because I so wanted it to be. Oh well, that's a me problem. So yeah, if you like it and it works for you, go for it, because it's a really good gun. Nice tight fit on that slide. Very smooth. It's like premium 1911 smooth. And if the trigger is not premium 1911 good, it certainly didn't show up in my shooting. So, a sad thought for what could have been. But dear, I'm afraid it's just not going to work between us. So, I hope this finds you well. Stay safe, take care, and I'll talk to you again real soon. Ghost pain in the trigger finger just from handling it. The finger remembers.